Mike in Texas, pronouns are I, me, my, which I'm not convinced are pronouns. But anyway, welcome, Mike.
That's okay. We could have that conversation. Hey, what's up, brother? So first things first, I'm going to send you an email. I want to see whether or not it's going to be possible to get your speaking fees, and I can arrange to have those paid if it's something you want to do. Secondly, in a lot of different circumstances, theists don't adequately represent really the cutting edge of theism because there's different levels of it. There's different psychological levels to which people represent their experience. And I think that the problem that you're really contending with is that you have a hard time with mythological theism. So people who think of theism at a mythological level, they confuse the symbols for the reality. That's a problem. More fundamental to that is when people confuse magical thinking with the reality, which is also a problem. And there's levels of theism beyond that. There's levels of theism which take place at a mental structure of reality and even at an integral structure of reality to which they become self-identical with certain psychological states. So in this particular instance, if you look to the Far East, you look at the Vedanta Dharmic traditions, right? When you're looking to the Far East, if you're looking at Brahman, you're looking at Buddhism, God is self-identical with the actual ground of psyche. God is considered the fundamental ground condition of the psyche. And God is considered a self-evident reality because you cannot deny the existence of God without denying the existence of your psyche.
Okay.
So when you actually anchor this back into like thinkers such as Arthur Schopenhauer borrowed a substantial amount of his information from the Far Eastern traditions.
So Mike?
It becomes the actual, yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure that nobody gets lost here, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that just got thrown out rapid fire.
Sure.
When somebody says that God is identical with the actual ground of psyche, I don't know what the actual ground of psyche is. I don't know anybody who has actually demonstrated what the actual ground of psyche is. And I think that, in my view, is a situation where someone has confused a metaphorical or a what's the right word? A construct that we use to describe something that happens, and they are kind of like anthropomorphizing it. Because to me, if the ground of psyche is like, let's say, just the brain, well, the brain is me. There's there's no evidence to point to something outside of the brain, or that who I am persists beyond the brain. And so can we do a better job of saying, okay, within this view of theism, God is co-equal with the ground of psyche, but that doesn't tell anybody anything. So can we get to a clearer definition?
Well,
and by the way, I want to make sure, and hang on. By the way, I don't want like a dissertation on 20 different versions of theism. I'm interested in what you actually believe and why.
Sure, I'm getting to that. So first, I think that there's a couple of false conflations in the presentation of your argument. I'm going to try to take everything that you say charitably because I'm not going to be like the traditional theist that just basically asserts things dogmatically. Consciousness is the one thing in the world that cannot be an illusion. Sam Harris is on board with this. So consciousness is self-evidently the case.
Okay, hang on.
If you did not,
Mike.
So this goes back to Renee.
Mike, I got to pause again for this. I'm going to let you finish. I don't give a flying fuck what Sam Harris is or isn't on board with, and nobody that you cite by name, whether it's Einstein, Schopenhauer, whoever, that's not going to have any impact on me at all. I only care about the definitions, the evidence for it, etc. Now, I'm of the view that consciousness is a product of the brain, and I'm fine with something like the cogito, I think, therefore I am, being a demonstration that at least there must be a me to fool. However, as Hobbes pointed out, that's contingent on the primacy of reason. So I just don't want it to be confused here.
Let's take your primacy of reason. Let's take the ergo cogito sum, and let's backtrack to what you just said about the brain. So in this particular instance, this is why we have to deal with things from the primacy of consciousness and not the primacy of objective reality, because we run into contradictions. And the reason being is because brains are actually discovered in the mind. We have a mind first before we cut open skulls to make an observation. But what it is that when we cut open a skull to make an observation, we have a series of electromagnetic radiation shining through what we ostensibly refer to as the evidence of the senses. It gets processed through whatever mechanisms are unfolding in that process, and then suddenly it prompts a visual construal as to what we might interpret post facto as a brain. But the brain, by the time that we encounter it, is already a structure of consciousness presenting itself to consciousness.
But that's no. That's true for everything, and the evidence that the only thing. I mean, we're not going to beat the problem of hard solipsism here. So when we're talking about, yes, before we could actually find and touch and see and probe a brain, our brains, which the evidence seems to show produce our mind, or the thing that we call our mind, or that does our thinking and the analysis of sense data for us, it was shielded from us, but that doesn't change the fact that this is the thing that's doing that work.
Well, this is the thing, Matt. The problem with that is that's a praxeological leap of faith that is presumed in the scientific method. And what I mean by that is that in order for science to actually unfold in a rational way, there are certain presuppositional beliefs that we actually have to have about the scientific method in order to get at the data. One of them is that hard solipsism is not possible to basically take as a stance because it undermines the entire scientific endeavor. But
no, you don't have to. No. I'm sorry, but that's just, wow. We don't have to assert that it's impossible. We just have to not be able to do it currently. If somebody can solve the problem of hard solipsism, and I don't think that they can, I think that we've demonstrated that reason is not going to let you do that. Just, even through the countless views of, hey, you have to have a primacy of something. And right now it's reason. But the fact that we can't, science isn't saying, by the way, there is no supernatural. What they're saying is we don't have the ability to investigate and confirm the supernatural's impact on reality. So there's a difference between methodological naturalism, which is a pragmatic treatment of this, and then philosophical naturalism, which is an assertion that I don't hold to. So
there's a couple of problems in the things that you basically said. There's a lot for me to unpack. Let's take the idea of naturalism, and this is one of the reasons why I think that you and I actually need to have a conversation in front of a university or someplace, because I don't really think that you're used to being able to talk to people that could hang with you at the level that you deserve to be hanging with, and I don't think that you're used to being able to communicate with a theist that's at my level. I think we deserve to actually have the conversation. And
hang on. I don't know who you are at all, Mike, and I'm not saying, maybe the show isn't the best place to start with all this. But considering I've had some debates with some pretty heavy hitters within theism, we've done that, and they haven't really made any progress on this. So instead of us bouncing all around to naturalism and 20 other topics,
let me answer the question. Let me answer the question, and why naturalism itself presupposes God. It's presupposed.
No, sir. Naturalism. Are you talking about philosophical naturalism or methodological naturalism?
I'm talking about scientific naturalism. Let me explain.
No. That's not what I asked.
Philosophical and scientific naturalism are virtually the same thing. Yes.
No, they're not the same thing. It is the difference between saying we are going to begin
scientific.
No. It's the difference between asserting that someone is innocent and not being convinced they're guilty. Science, as a methodology, says, hey, we don't currently have any way to detect whether or not there's anything that is truly supernatural and whether or not it can interact with the world. We have no way to demonstrate that the supernatural exists or that it can manifest in any detectable way in the world. Philosophical naturalism asserts that the natural world is all that exists. Those are two different things. One is the assertion of innocence, and the other one is saying, hey, I don't have enough reason to conclude that you're guilty.
Okay.
That's different.
Philosophical naturalism, as you defined it, would contradict itself. Let's deal with scientific naturalism in this particular instance.
Okay, and scientific naturalism is no one has made, the case has not been made for the supernatural, and so therefore we don't get to appeal to it.
I'm about to make the case for the supernatural.
Good, let's do it.
So scientific naturalism, let me make two different arguments, because once these are understood, it becomes pretty apparent that we're forced into a situation.
How about you make one argument first and we address that? Because right now we're going on and we're getting nowhere. There's 6 other callers waiting and there's thousands of people watching.
I'm going to make an argument to the theory of everything. So science endeavors to produce a theory of everything. And in order for science to actually achieve a theory of everything, there needs to be a one-to-one correspondence between the description it provides and the object it describes. Now, the fundamental language which science attempts to or endeavors to describe things in terms of is mathematics. So if science is actually to be describing the ultimate object of reality, the ultimate object of reality must also be a mathematical reality to one-to-one correspondence, which basically means the a priori presuppositions of science in attempting to describe anything mathematically must basically be describing another mathematical mind with a one-to-one correspondence. And if that's the case, it's describing another mathematical mind with a one-to-one correspondence, That is precisely the limit of what scientific knowledge could ever produce, is another mind.
Okay, I'm going to sit here and point out that I took some notes. I reject absolutely, well, all right, let me not say it. I reject virtually everything you just said, and it's not particularly relevant, because if scientists are looking for a theory of mind, it doesn't matter if scientists are ultimately flawed in their attempt to find, or sorry, a theory of everything, in their attempt to find a theory of everything. Maybe there isn't a theory of everything. Maybe this endeavor of theirs to find a theory of everything is a fruitless, pointless, mistaken search. But it's irrelevant to whether or not philosophical naturalism presuppose. I swear, I let you talk.
Could I address the issue that I have with what you said about my position? Because it's not
no, because I'm not done fucking talking yet. Have you learned that? Give me some space to finish what I'm saying, and then I'd let you talk.
Okay, go ahead.
Your case here is about a theory of everything. A, we don't currently have a theory of everything. B, it may be a mistake for people to be seeking a theory of everything. C, I don't think that your description of what a theory of everything would necessarily require as a one-to-one correspondence is in fact what people are searching for. And since we haven't found it yet, it's still irrelevant. I don't give a rip about a theory of everything until it's actually a theory that has been demonstrated, tested, sent for peer review, and everything. And this is when we start looking at it as if it's a model. Your objection here is essentially scientists are doing something that I don't think they're going to be able to do. Well, okay. I'm not convinced they can do it either. I don't even view string theory as science.
You're attacking an argument I don't have. Because I got 50% of the way through it when there was a red herring introduced and dragged me off what I was attempting to say.
The red herring was a theory of everything because it doesn't exist. And therefore, if you start with a theory of everything, you are starting with something that isn't science in your attempt to criticize science.
Excuse me, Matt, that's the position that I didn't say it existed. What I'm talking about, a position that PhD physicist Max Tegmark formulated. It's his argument.
Okay.
Let me explain to you.
No, I'm done.
His position. I'm not trying to.
I'm done. I'm done wasting the audience's time on this. Put together an email. Let's have a conversation. I don't care who you can point to that cites anything. There isn't a theory of everything. And if and the fact that some scientists are pursuing something does not mean that there's a fundamental problem with science. It may be that there's a fundamental problem with their model, which hasn't been demonstrated yet because we've neither established nor debunked this theory of everything. You have started off with something that is irrelevant.
That's not even the argument I'm saying. Please let me say my argument.
Then you wasted your one and only opportunity to get an argument out by starting with something that's irrelevant. Let's try it again some other time, but I'm done wasting time on this today.
What I was attempting to say is that if it's not a...
I don't know what's so difficult about I'm done with this today.